Remember that the cycle of lacking self-discipline has 5 phases. In this section we talk about exactly how to address each of the first 4 phases. 1. Unhelpful assumptions or made-up rules. Life is short, I should enjoy it and not spend my precious time washing that dusty car. Car washes are something you pay for anyway. To clear up any unhelpful assumptions regarding self-discipline, consider something of a favorite concept of mine, the 40% rule. It says that when an individual's mind begins telling them that they are physically or emotionally maxed out, in reality they have only pushed themselves to 40% of their full capacity. In other words, they could endure 60% more if only they believed that they were capable of it. When you think you have reached your limits, you're not even close, and whether you can keep going or not depends on if you believe it. It's quite a belief to feel that you've reached your limits and say to yourself that you're only 40% done. It's an acceptance of pain, and that's a belief that is much more beneficial to your self-discipline. What if you were to replace your unhelpful, disempowering assumptions with this one of strength and agency? We are usually ready to give up around the time that we begin to feel pain or are barely pressing our boundaries, but that point is actually just the beginning of what we are all capable of, and the key to unlocking more potential is to push through the initial pain and the self-doubt that surfaces along with it. By maintaining a belief in yourself, you show yourself that you can do more, and that evidence builds your confidence and discipline. You might, for example, begin struggling after doing 10 push-ups. You'd start hearing the voice in your head that says you feel too tired, too sore, or too weak to go on. But if you take a pause and gather yourself to do one more, you find that you've already disproven the voice saying that you can't. Then you pause and do another, and then another, and then another. Suddenly you're at 20. You can take it slowly, but you've just doubled what you thought was possible. Believing that you can do more will make it true. It enables you to go well beyond the limits that you've constructed for yourself in your own mind. And once you've felt the pain and the urge to give up at 10 push-ups only to push through it and do 20, you know that your mental strength helped you persevere. Next time you're challenged, you'll feel all the more capable and prepared to push past your supposed limits again. This embodies self-discipline in a nutshell. It's really a matter of how much pain you can stomach, and most of us will only bend and never break. Our minds can be our best friends when we have a strong belief in our capabilities, but they can also be a poisonous enemy if we allow negativity to seize control. It's up to you to empower yourself using the 40% rule rather than throwing in the towel mentally at the first sign of resistance. The reality is that most of us have no clue of our true physical and mental limitations. Quite often the underlying causes of lapses in discipline are the beliefs we create in our minds that we can't do something. Expecting yourself to be capable, successful, and disciplined will make it all the more likely that you actually are. To increase discomfort, I'd rather not wash the car. It's boring and uncomfortable. I know my spouse asked me to, but it can wait. Self-discipline is uncomfortable by nature. You would never willingly subject yourself to the struggle of being disciplined unless you had a strong purpose for doing so. The things willingly do with enjoyment are called fun. We never hear about people needing discipline to eat ice cream or play video games. There's no amount of knowledge, habit formation, thinking, or visualization that will make self-discipline comfortable. It's simply a fact that being disciplined is going to feel like a chore. You're going to hate it at times. Even the key quantity we need more of isn't necessarily always self-discipline itself. It's the amount of discomfort we can handle and tolerate. This process seeks to turn a stabbing pain into a dull annoyance you can barely feel, or a hunger pain you actually crave, because it means you are sticking to your diet that's as good as it's going to get. Washing the dishes may not morph into something pleasurable, but at least it doesn't have to be an agonizing experience. Being disciplined comes down to choosing temporary discomfort that helps you in the long term. Discipline doesn't care if you are exhausted, irritated, or even dejected. That's when you need it the most. Making a regular habit of embracing uncomfortable situations can have a positive impact on all aspects of your life. Just as lifting weights causes temporary discomfort, allows muscles to grow back stronger, choosing disciplined actions and decision-making also makes your uncomfortable muscles stronger. You don't need to be uncomfortable in your daily life, but being familiar with the feeling sure helps you in the face of actual adversity. You can even create anxiety and uncertainty yourself so that they are controlled and manageable to show yourself that you are capable of handling it. Jia Zhang gave a popular TED Talk about his personal journey outside of his comfort zone, in which he confronted his fear of rejection and the social anxiety anxiety that came with it. Jang wanted to become more confident, so he set out to desensitize himself to rejection by seeking rejection out in some small and controlled way 100 days in a row. Some of Jang's rejections included borrowing $100 from a stranger, requesting a burger refill, and asking to play soccer in somebody's backyard. When the 100 days were up, Jang was a new person with more confidence and a greater appreciation for how kind people are to one another. Jang's story of overcoming a fear of rejection is applicable to everybody. Your personal fears and discomforts are also your opportunities to challenge yourself. If you like to be in control, spend a day deferring to other people. If you're more comfortable being passive, spend a day asserting yourself and making more decisions. Whatever you are comfortable doing, do the opposite. Injecting manageable discomfort and uncertainty into your life isn't difficult to do. You might order the dish on the restaurant menu that has ingredients you haven't heard of before, or instead of taking a relaxing hot shower, you could turn the water to cold and force yourself to stand in it until you gain control of your breath and calm your mind. Ask people for discounts that don't think you'll get. Sit down in a restaurant and then leave after receiving the menu. That walk to the door will feel incredibly long. Even just doing something spontaneous or out of character can get you out of your comfort zone enough to see that your uncomfortable zone isn't that bad. As practice builds your willpower, you can begin to change some of your less beneficial habits. When you feel pulled into a battle with your urges, you'll have the mental strength to resist that temptation and to instead ride the urges out like a wave. And if fear motivates you to avoid your urge altogether by distracting yourself from them, fear is sometimes an opportunity for positive change. Discomfort and struggle are what make you who you are. You're reading this book because you want to be more self-disciplined, so if you're going to follow through on that, then it's time for you to be comfortable with discomfort. 3 excuses for lack of self-discipline to decrease psychological discomfort. It's perfectly reasonable for me not to wash the car. It's so hot outside I would melt. My spouse didn't really mean it when they asked. It's time to understand the psychology of excuses. Better, making excuses isn't always a deliberate thing. This often makes it hard to pinpoint exactly when we use excuses because we tend towards certain ways of thinking that we just accept as who we are. Some of these mindsets are classic personality types that we're all familiar with to an extent. Others are patterns of thought that we don't easily recognize. All of them conspire to make us delay, procrastinate, or simply refuse to do something, but they're also correctable. There are many different mindsets that contribute to the act of excusing, but we'll focus on 4 of the more common ones. Perfectionist. This is someone who only acknowledges results. If everything goes exactly as they planned, there can be no deviation whatsoever. The perfectionist takes a stock all or nothing approach to what they see done. Either everything is right or absolutely nothing gets done. And of course, you bet the standards of a perfectionist are frequently impossible to meet. They'll have an absolute floor of expectation. If that minimum level of accomplishment isn't met, the entire project is a waste. So why bother? How to change the perfectionist mindset? First, stop thinking of accomplishments as off switches where there's just the binary of done, not done. Rather, think of efforts in terms of a dial where all efforts are simply measured in levels of intensity. You might be going at 85, 50%, or 3%, but you're doing something instead of shutting down. If things aren't perfectly executed, something better than nothing. If you don't come out of the gate stronger than anyone else and do everything perfectly, you can always adjust along the way. It's a fluid process. The intimidated people with this mindset have some commonalities with the perfectionist in that they use an ideal condition to gauge the effectiveness of their efforts, but the intimidated is more gripped with fear than the perfectionist. They're afraid they've overshot their ability and have taken on more than they can handle. The intimidated is driven by a consumptive fear of the unknown and the prospect of total failure. Not only will the results be bad, but they'll also be downright disastrous. The cake in the oven won't just burn, you'll set the entire kitchen on fire. To tame the intimidated and overcome your terror of what might happen, the answer is very simple. Research. Consider what's the worst case scenario in efforts. What would truly define utter catastrophe? Write the answer down and make whatever plans and reinforcements you need to avoid that terrible event from unfolding, and then get to work. Remember too that failure is something to learn from. Just allowing yourself to be defined by failure with trying to figure out the adjustments you could make to achieve a better result is a lifelong recipe for eternal procrastination. Resist the urge to overthink and overanalyze in advance and risk analysis paralysis. Just start something everything the environment. Blamer people with this mindset are completely at the mercy of their surroundings. They believe they have no input or control about what happens. Life to them is merely a sequence of things that happen to them, not the accomplishments they make. Their belief that outside forces are always conspiring against them leads them to focus only on external and not at all on their own internal abilities or contributions. This is especially helpful when they're trying to evade responsibility to change the environment. Blaming mindset: simply accept accountability and realize that things don't have to happen to you. Understand that you have just as much ability to affect your surroundings as anyone or anything else. Nothing prevents you from doing so besides yourself. This is a matter of understanding just how much you can participate in your daily life. Question whether the environment is really the cause of your sorrows or whether it's just convenient excuse, like the example from earlier. Traffic and weather might happen to you, but that doesn't mean you can't account for them yourself. The defeatist. This mindset is pessimistic. A defeatist is certain there's no chance for success and won't let you forget about it. They've already decided they're not going to succeed, whether they say so or not. The defeatist uses their lack of optimism to explain their own inabilities. It's not really a reflection of the truth, just that they lack the requisite tools to do anything. More often than not, this attitude stops being an opinion and turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy. They really will start stinking at everything. To change the defeatist mindset, stop confirming your own failure, even if it runs counter to your ideas of reality. Just attack the problem you're trying to solve or the goal you're trying to achieve. Break the big task down in smaller and more manageable pieces. Try to score a few quick wins instead of the league championship all at once. It's fair and even prudent to expect hardships or tough stretches, and it's even okay to ask for outside assistance. Just don't declare that failure is inevitable. It's never a done deal. Excuse is the most temporary and fruitless method to feel better rather than repair faults and flaws from the ground up. An excuse is more like a band-aid that just obscures flaws and does little to fix them. Understanding the nature of excuses helps us see them coming before we speak them. Where pause in our thinking can help us see what the real situation is and can open up insights into how we can positively affect them, and that leads to a tenacious character that can contend with anything that comes down the path. Now that we understand the true purpose of excuses and why they are so unhelpful, it's time to learn a method to deal with them as they arise. The solution isn't necessarily to deny what we're telling ourselves, as that's nearly impossible. Excuses reflect certain states of mind that we may indeed think we're experiencing. Instead of denying your excuses, try to dig the surface and find three components: the truth, the mentally weak conclusion, and the mentally tough conclusion. Drawing a clear distinction between these three factors is what will allow you to truly understand your internal dialogue and isolate where you can choose to be tough and resilient. Simple, let's say you have an essay that's due in a few days that will require you to perform research. You have a reasonable window of time to get it completed, but you're exhausted. This is the truth. This is the neutral reality of the situation. This is where the fork in the road appears, and you make your choice about how to approach it with toughness or not. Now ask yourself what an excuse for the truth would sound like. This might be your first impulse to come up with an excuse not to get started. I could start now, but I'll do much better after I get some sleep. There's your mentally weak conclusion. It's allowing you to procrastinate even though there might be a hint of truth. Its sole purpose is to allow you to take the easy way out. It is indisputably the path of least resistance. It seems to be small and harmless, but it is actually attempting to absolve you of responsibility. Ask yourself what the best approach for the truth is. On the other hand, you could say, I'm tired, but if nothing else, I can do a few small things right now to get the paper going. I could make a rough outline that'll make this paper easier to navigate when I'm more refreshed. That's a mentally tough conclusion. It is recognizing what the right and most effective choice is instead of the easy choice. It doesn't demand that you exhaust yourself, but it ensures that you set yourself up for success. Often it's only when we engage in this type of role-playing that we can understand we are even making an excuse. You're not required to reject the conditions that make up your mentally weak conclusions. No, it's not about becoming a relentless machine in the face of all adversity step by step. It's just about realizing that you have many choices and that the choices that lead to toughness are just slight pivot away. We can move forward only when we realize that excuses are almost always lies. 4. Avoidance activities. To decrease psychological discomfort, I will clean the bathroom instead. I'm still productive. I'll also arrange my desk. Lots of things getting done today. Tinkering with environment can make self-discipline a whole lot easier. If it's difficult to distract yourself, then self-discipline might actually become the path of least resistance, and you might as well work when you study how human behavior evolves over a long time period. Environment frequently plays more of a part in success than motivation or skill. Environment is the hidden force that guides human behavior. Yes,
Incentive, intelligence, and labor are important, but these traits often get overmatched by the surroundings in which we dwell. External factors are the invisible accomplices for shaping how we act and behave. No matter how self-disciplined we want to be, it is at least partially determined by your physical surroundings. Brian Wansink of Cornell University conducted a study on dietary habits in 2006 and made an interesting discovery. When people switched from serving plates diameter to plates that were 10 in cent, they wound up eating 22% less food. It's an example of how even a minor adjustment in an environment can contribute to an outcome you want. The change in plate size was a minuscule 2 and not quite the width of a smartphone, but yielded more than 1/5 of a decrease in consumption. Make the easy thing the right thing. Make it the default thing. Even, for instance, if you want extra incentive to practice a musical instrument more, you could make a permanent place for the instrument in the middle of a room with instructions of exactly where to pick up. You could also leave a trail of sheet music that literally requires you to pick it up to walk to your bed. If you want to work out more, you're more likely to visit a gym if it's located on your way home from work rather than 10 miles in the opposite direction. You can also put your gym bag in front of your door, buy a pull-up bar for your kitchen doorway, and only wear shoes that can double as exercise shoes. Finally, if you want to procrastinate less, you can leave reminder post-it next to door handles in your wallet, which are things you will have to touch. Leave your work in a place you can't avoid it. Hide your distracting temptations. Decreasing distraction is a function of out of sight, out of mind. For example, supermarkets often place higher priced items at customers' eye levels to increase the chances they'll buy them, but one could reverse this process at home by keeping unhealthy foods away from immediate view and storing them in less visible or harder to reach levels. Put your chocolate inside 5 containers like a Russian nesting doll and put them in a closet. See how often you binge. Then, to stop smoking, one might consider removing all the ashtrays from inside the home and place them as far away as possible on the perimeter of their property, so smoking will necessitate a brisk walk in the freezing winter. To keep from sitting down all day, you can switch to a standing desk that will force you to stand up during most working hours. You could also simply remove chairs, coffee tables from the area in which you do most of your work. Depending on willpower and discipline is risky to say the least, so create an environment that will help you automate your decisions towards self-discipline. In taking that decision out of your hands, you're rewiring yourself to take habits out of your routine and likely saving a little time in the process.